We welcome our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. This is a special edition of Business Morning live from our global headquarters here in Lagos. I am Bosin Amafaye. Business and markets are closed for the Democracy Day. That's a day Nigeria set aside nearly 30 years ago when formal military rules were ended and civilian democracy restarted in Africa's most populous country. Early today, Professor Yemi Osinbajo became the first acting president to read the Democracy Day speech while an incumbent president is still in office. President Buhari is presently attending to his health in the United Kingdom. The second time he's absent within the past 6 months. Today, the traditional pass-out parade and fanfare at the Eagle Square, Abuja, or at the presidential villa are completely absent. In a very long speech early today, the acting president spends more time speaking to the state of the economy than any other issues such as insecurity. And in case you missed the early morning broadcast, this is an excerpt of what acting president Professor Yemi Osinbajo speaks to on economy and business.
Well, let me first express just how concerned we have been since this administration took office about the impact of the economic recession on our citizens. Through no fault of theirs, some companies shut down their operation. Others downsized, people lost jobs, and had to endure rising food prices. In some states, civil servants worked months on end without the guarantee of a salary, even as rents and school fees and other expenses continued to show up like clockwork. We have been extremely mindful of the many sacrifices that you've had to make over the last few years. And for this reason, this administration's work on the economic front has been targeted at a combination of short-term interventions to cushion the pain, as well as medium to long-term efforts aimed at rebuilding an economy that is no longer helplessly dependent on the price of crude oil. Those short-term interventions include putting together a series of bailout packages for our state governments to enable them bridge their salary shortfalls, an issue that the president has consistently expressed his concerns about. We also began the hard work of laying out a framework for our social intervention program, the most ambitious in the history of the country. One of the first tasks of the Cabinet and Economic Management team was to put together a strategic implementation plan for the 2016 budget, targeting initiatives that would create speedy yet lasting impact on the lives of Nigerians. Indeed, much of 2016 was spent clearing the mess we inherited and putting the building blocks together for the future of our dreams, laying a solid foundation for the kind of future that you deserve as citizens of Nigeria. In his budget presentation speech to the National Assembly last December, President Buhari outlined our economic agenda in detail and assured that 2017 would be the year in which you would begin to see tangible benefits of all the planning and preparation work. It is my pleasure to note that in the 5 months since he delivered that speech, we have seen tremendous progress, as promised. Take the example of our social investment program, which kicked off at the end of 2016. Its homegrown school feeding component is now feeding more than 1 million primary school children across 7 states and will be feeding 3 million by the end of the year. The N-Power, another component, has engaged 200,000 unemployed graduates, none of whom needed any connections to be selected. Beneficiaries are already telling the stories of how these initiatives have given them a fresh start in their lives. Microcredit to 1 million artisans, traders, market men and women has also begun, while conditional cash transfers, which will eventually reach 1 million of the poorest and most vulnerable households, has also begun. Roads and power projects are going on in every part of the country. In rail, we are making progress with our plans to attract hundreds of millions of dollars in investments to upgrade the existing 3,500 kilometers narrow gauge network. We have also, in 2017, flagged off construction work on the Lagos-Ibadan leg of our standard gauge network, and we are close to completing the first phase of Abuja's mass transit rail system. In April, the President launched our Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which built on the foundations laid by the Strategic Implementation Plan of 2016. The plan has set forth a clear vision for the economic development of Nigeria, and I'll come back to this point presently. Another highlight of the President's budget speech was our work around the ease of doing business reforms. As promised, we have since followed up with implementation and execution. I'm pleased to note that we're now seeing verifiable progress across several areas, ranging from our new visa on arrival scheme to reforms at our ports and regulatory agencies. The President also promised that 2017 would see the rollout of executive orders to facilitate government approvals, support procurement of locally made goods, and improve fiscal responsibility. We have kept that promise. This month, we issued 3 executive orders to make it easier for citizens to get the permits and licenses they require for their businesses, to mandate government agencies to spend more of their budgets on locally produced goods, and to promote budget transparency and efficiency. The overarching idea is to make the government agencies and government budgets work more efficiently for the people. The impact of our ease of doing business work is gradually being felt by businesses small and large. Its successful takeoff has allowed us to follow up with the MSME clinics, our small business support program, which has taken us so far to Aba, Sokoto, Jos, and Katsina. And we expect to be in all other states, to the technology hubs being developed nationwide, to innovation competitions such as the Aso Villa Demo Day, and our various MSME support schemes. We will do everything to nurture the immense innovativeness and entrepreneurial potentials of our young people. We are a nation of young people and will ensure that our policies and programs reflect this. One of the highlights of our power sector recovery programs, which we launched in March, is a 701 billion payment assurance scheme that will resolve the financing bottlenecks that have until now constrained the operation of our gas suppliers and generation companies. Let me assure that you will soon begin to see the positive impact of these steps. Our Solid Minerals Development Fund has also now taken off, in line with our commitment to developing the sector. Because of our unerring focus on solid minerals over the last 2 years, the sector has, alongside agriculture, seen impressive levels of growth in spite of the recession. On the whole, just as the President promised in the budget speech, these early months of 2017 have seen the flowering of the early fruit of all the hard work of our first 18 months. We opened the year with an overwhelmingly successful Eurobond offer, evidence of continuing investor interest in Nigeria. We have also launched the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan 2017-2020 to build on the gains of last year's Strategic Implementation Plan. And the implementation of our 2017 budget will soon be signed into law. And this will bring added impetus to our ongoing economic recovery plans. In the 2016 budget, we spent 1.2 trillion naira on infrastructure projects, another milestone in the history of this country. Our 2017 budget will double that investment. That budget also provides for substantial investments to implement the rollout of industrial parks and special economic zones, as well as our social housing program. The industrial parks and economic zones will fulfill our ambition of making Nigeria a manufacturing hub, while the Family Homes Fund of our social housing program will provide inexpensive mortgages for low-income individuals and families across the country. These plans offer yet more evidence that we are ramping up the pace of work, the work of fulfilling all that we promised. In the next 2 years, we will build on the successes of the last 2. We have demonstrated a willingness to learn from our mistakes and to improve on our successes. The critical points that we must address fully in the next 2 years are agriculture and food security, energy, which includes power and petroleum, industrialization, and transport infrastructure. Every step of the way, we'll be working with the private sector, giving them the necessary incentives and the right environment to invest and do business. Our vision is for a country that grows what it eats and produces what it consumes. It is for a country that no longer has to import petroleum products and develops a lucrative petrochemical industry. Very importantly, it is for a country whose fortunes are no longer tied to the price of a barrel of crude, but instead to the boundless talent and energy of its people, young and old, male and female, as they invest in the diverse areas of our economy.
Nigeria's acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.